Episode 10. Can you admit when you're wrong? Welcome back to One Extraordinary Marriage, where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of intimacy. You're here with Alisa DiLorenzo.
And Tony DiLorenzo.
And tonight we're going to get real about the not-so-great day-to-day reality that sometimes happens in our marriage. But before we do that, I want to talk about a couple of very exciting things for us. First of all, this is episode 10.
Yeah.
We have made it through 2.5 months.
I know. Did you think we'd ever make it this far?
10 seemed really far out there, especially when we did the first one.
I know. So. I was thinking about that this week. Just going, wow, we're up to 10 episodes. That's rad.
Yeah, because I keep notes on each episode and I type them in, and title it with the episode number. And so this week I was like, ooh, double digits.
I know. That's cool.
Here we go. The second thing that's been very fun for us this week is all the feedback we've gotten on both the website, oneextraordinarymarriage.com.
Yeah, to the blog.
And to our Facebook fan page.
Yeah. Thank you, all of you who have become fans on our Facebook fan page and those who are still coming and all the comments we're getting. Are you going to read some of those?
I am.
Okay.
And I want to thank you before I start reading them to also say thank you for sharing both the website and the fan page with your friends. I know a lot of you are doing that because we're starting to hear from people. We have no idea how they found us. And so it's great that they're chiming in and just a couple of the comments that we got this week. We had posted the question asking people, what's the most romantic thing your spouse has ever done for you? And we also talked about last week on our podcast about date night. And so we asked, what people's ideas were for date nights. And so some of these comments, we heard from Michelle, who lived up in Alaska. And she and her husband would go bear watching at the dump.
I thought that was the best one.
I think we're going to have to go to Alaska because we
need to go to Alaska. Yes, I'm all for going to Alaska. So if there's a church up in Alaska that wants us to speak, get a hold of us. I want to go. The
closest we've ever been to a bear is that one time when we were in Yosemite.
That's the closest time we've been. But when I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, I saw numerous bears, and probably the closest one to me was 200-300 feet away.
Well, that one in Yosemite, that was like right there. Remember, it was right outside the cabin when we were in the village?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Remember the one that was right there?
I totally forgot that one. Oh, yeah. That's like when all the touristy people were like right in the face, like taking pictures of it, and it had a red tag in its ear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was real smart.
Yeah, well,
That's right. I totally forgot about that one.
Yeah.
Good call.
That's our bear story. Not nearly as exciting as going bear watching at the dump. So, Michelle, thank you for sharing that. We also heard from Derek, who said, I like how you guys are integrating little touches into your dates, like the wine from the winery where you got married, that have significance. It's fun to celebrate past moments with little mementos like that. And then he said, as for me and my wife, we're planning to have a glass of wine and watch Seinfeld Season 6, Disc 2, by candlelight, of course. We laugh so hard together when we're watching that show. And I love just hearing that emotion.
Yeah, definitely.
That this is something where they know they're just going to laugh and they're going to laugh together and really have that fun time together. Mm-hmm. Ron wrote in and said that for his 30th birthday, his wife Barbara surprised him with a trip to Las Vegas and tickets to see, the Cirque du Soleil show at the Bellagio.
Yeah, that would be cool.
How fun to, you get up for
We still got to go see that show.
Plan it, dude. Take the lead and make the plans.
All right, thank you.
Going towards, those romantic things here. Angela wrote in, she said, every day Tom tells me, I love you the most. Infinity. It's a game. Whomever says it first each day wins. He also texts me every morning, every day, and tells me the same thing. Something I could never hear enough.
Yeah, that's rad.
Tom, way to go. You are reaffirming to her, not only on a daily basis, but throughout the day, that you love her.
Yeah.
And you love her the most. And that is such a special thing to hear. And then this last Facebook follower, I encourage you to go to our fan page. Her name is Laura Wallace. And she wrote in with this tremendous list of ideas that she and her husband have done. Everything from making up stories while there are people watching to going to thrift stores, to going out for a glass of wine, or going to the dollar store to see who can find the best gift for $1. It's a list that I think we're going to have to print off and just try and do some of the things ourselves, because there were so many great ideas in there.
Yeah, definitely. I was loving the ideas, because I think even in our marriage and our date nights, we get a little stagnant and just sort of do the same thing. So by putting that question out there, it's been great to see what other folks do, because now we can go use those ideas, which is great. I mean, that's what it's all about, is finding some of the cool stuff other folks are doing and integrating it into our marriage.
And so I encourage those of you that are looking for date night ideas, or for looking for romantic things to do for your spouse, to check out the website and the blog and the fan page to see what people are saying. It might spark something that you're like, oh, that would be great for us to try. So we also had a phone call on the caller feedback line, the 858-754-9937. We heard from Justin, and Tony's going to play that for us right now.
Hi, Tony and Lisa. This is Justin Lucasavage. I'm the host of CoachRadio.tv, and I can't tell you how inspirational your podcast is. You guys just do a fantastic job of not only sharing your story, but also giving inspiration to others. My wife and I always thought that we had a pretty good marriage, and we loved the relationship that we have between us. But we still listen to the show that you guys have, and we're finding that we pick up tips, we pick up all these different things and inspiration, and the things that we've done in our marriage just over the past couple weeks has just meant the world to us. So you guys are, again, doing a fantastic job. Keep it up. I don't miss an episode. You guys are doing great. Thanks.
Justin, thanks so much for the call and for your feedback. And it was kind of interesting that we got this call this week, because we really didn't even have a great week.
We didn't.
Tony, why don't you share?
Okay. No, this week was just one of those weeks I felt between us that things were just off. Mm-hmm. It seemed to have started earlier in the week when we just had a lot going on. And I just... The big one comes to me, and I think it was probably like on Wednesday, and I had a couple ideas for you about what we were doing with the blog. I also had a phone call from my dad about possibly going to see them this weekend, because there was a family event going on, and everything that I was saying to you was, I just got negative feedback, and it was hurtful at times, because everything I was saying, it didn't matter what I said. I mean, the first thing that was coming out of your mouth was no, or that's not a good idea. It's just very mean-hearted. Maybe I was taking it the wrong way at times, but I just felt like no matter what I was saying to you this week, it was just negative. You were just very negative to me. And I remember just sort of sitting there at one point just listening to you talk, and all I heard was blah, 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 because you just wouldn't stop the negativity, and it was just very destructive, I felt.
Mm-hmm. You called me on it.
I did, because I finally got to the point with what you were saying each and every time I brought up an idea was you just, again, it was just very negative. It was hurtful, and maybe I took it the wrong way, but after all the stuff that we've been working towards and what we've been doing, I felt that we were on the same page, and this week it just didn't go that way. It was just yuck.
There was definitely a sense of disconnect on both sides, because there
was no disconnect on my side.
Well, we were not connecting.
Right, but that was because you had been building up this wall. I wasn't disconnecting. I was talking to you like I always had.
Okay. That's fair.
Do you not?
That's fair.
What I'm saying is, even with some of the business stuff, why are you laughing?
Sorry, I'm laughing because here we are having one of those like disconnect moments where I'm... Go ahead. Why don't you finish your thought?
No, what I was going to say was one of the things that we were dealing with one is I'm sort of the idea type person, and I throw things out on the wall. Well, how about if we ask our community this? Or what if we try and do this? And it's always been that way. And you are more the practical thinker of that, and you will mull it over and think about it and go, well, let's put it this way or let's word it that way. And anytime I was coming up with an idea this week, it was just sort of like, no, that's not going to work.
Right. That was my all week. And I, since we've reflected on this and we've talked about it, I am aware. And I think I was even to some extent aware of when it was going on, that I was very much, no, your idea is not going to work. And so finally, I think it was it Thursday or Friday?
I think Thursday.
You were on your way home from work and I think you threw something else out. You called me and you're like, well, I was thinking about this. And I was very flip once again, like, no, it's not going to work. Pessimism.
Right. This had to be like the fourth or fifth time this week.
Probably. Easily the fourth or fifth time, if not more.
And I was just sick and tired of listening to you at that point.
Charlie,
in all honesty, I mean, I was just sort of sick and tired of listening to you. And I'm thinking, crap, it's Thursday night. We're going to have to make love sometime because Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday are your nights to initiate. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man,
this is not good.
Yeah, I hope something turns around soon because really, if you're going to initiate, I'm going to have to say no. And I know that's one of our deals where we go, hey, if it's your night to initiate, you cannot say no. But I was at the point this week where I was ready to just go, you know what? There's no way I'm making love to you unless we clear some of this out because it's no fun. I mean, honestly, I would have been just a warm body. So I'm glad you took the next step.
Well, you actually took the first step. I mean, you took a step of courage because I have a tendency when I kind of get in one of those funky moods that I can be hostile.
Yes.
I can go on the defensive easily. That's a switch that, you start to call me on something and I have the potential to be quite a cranky wife.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember, we were sitting on the cell phone. I've got kids bouncing around and you say, you know what, this is not working this week. There's something going on with you. And
well, what was going on with you? I think that's part of the story here is what's going on.
I think I suffer, and there will be some women out there who will probably, be on both sides of the comments as far as this goes. I am a woman who multitasks, and sometimes I do it very well. And sometimes...
Do I not multitask?
You do to some extent. Women and men multitask differently. I will not say that men cannot multitask. I will say that they do it differently.
Okay.
I'm not a guy. It looks to me like you're
tell me how you multitask and I'll tell you if that's the way I multitask. How's that?
Well, I would say that this week I did not multitask effectively. I was trying to keep too many balls up in the air, so to speak, just juggling what we were doing with one and stuff with the kids and stuff with my other business and just all of the responsibilities on my plate. And this was just one of those weeks when, coupled with sleep deprivation, Abby is waking up again in the middle of the night. Bless her sweet little heart.
Yeah.
That, what I run into is during the day, I have a few hours when the kids are at school that I can work on stuff. And then I've got them in the afternoon and then it's family time. And then they're in bed. And when they go to bed, instead of us going to bed, we usually stay up and that's when we're working together.
Right.
And so this was just a week where we had been up routinely past 11. And I think that coupled with Abby waking up in the middle of the night and me just feeling some pressure from a number of different sources, I just kind of got to the point where I was overwhelmed. And so instead of telling you...
Well, I think we multitask the same way.
Okay.
I just think we handle it differently.
All right. That's probably a more accurate assessment.
Okay.
And so I just got to a point where I wasn't handling all of my pressures and responsibilities well. And instead of communicating that to you, that I'm just, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed here. I'm not sure. I don't want to drop any of these balls that I'm juggling in the air.
Well, I'd rather you tell me that you're overwhelmed than being snippy at me.
Agreed. I did not handle it well.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about.
Well, I understand that.
That I didn't handle it well. And that when you called me on it, when you said, you know what, this is not working. You're being rude. You're being hurtful. Every time I make any type of suggestion to you, you're shooting me down before the words are even out of my mouth.
Which you were.
I admit it. And I told you when you called me on it that you were right. I
wasn't looking for the right or wrong. I just wanted you to realize that what you were doing was very destructive.
Well, and I'm not saying that I said you were right,
right
to just, pacify you. I was acknowledging.
Yes, you did.
It wasn't a pacification of saying,
no,
you're right, Tony. Okay, leave me alone. It was, you're right. I am acknowledging to you that I have been behaving like this week.
Right. And you did do that. I do recall that conversation.
And I think the reason I didn't quite go on the defensive like I normally would have is because you approached it from a sense, it's kind of those communication skills using, the I feel instead of the you are. And you started off that conversation saying, what, I just feel like every time I say something to you, you're shooting me down.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I even talking to you this week when, if I throw out an idea, you're like, it's not going to work. If I say one thing, you've got the idea shot and buried and in the grave before we've even said, well, how could it work? Or what could we do to make it work?
Right. But I think what I'm trying to get at is the whole multitasking thing.
Uh-huh.
Why this week was it so much tougher than what we've been going through? I mean, are you not praying? Are you not getting into the word? Are you just your mind's somewhere else and not on what I want it to be on?
That happens. And there are times we have different focuses.
Right.
I will definitely say that I probably was not reading I will not say probably. I was not reading my Bible as much this week. I tend to spend a lot of time just in prayer throughout the day. I don't know that you and I have ever actually even talked about this. I kind of do a running conversation with God during the day instead of having a designated prayer time. For me, it's very much like, okay, God, this is going on now. And, well, what about this? And what about that? And this is, what I want to pray for. And so it's really, I can't remember. I know I heard it in a sermon once about having this, the running conversation with God. And that was something that really has hit home with me, that at this stage in my life, I feel like I can't necessarily have that designated, I don't make the designated prayer time, Bible reading time every day. And
I'm not saying I do it every day either.
But what I have found has worked for me is that I stay in conversation with God. I work on, as people pop into my mind, praying for them at that point in time, if there are situations. And this week, I just wasn't doing a lot of that.
Right.
And I don't have a good explanation.
Well, it would also help if I know when you're there so I can pray for you.
And that was, I didn't tell you. I just, kind of felt this, I don't know if tension's the right word. I mean, it was something that I could tell was going on inside of me.
Tension about what?
Just, like there was a build,
Over what? Though that's what I'm trying to get at, honey, is over what do you have tension about?
Okay, part of it is cyclical. Okay, and there are going to be lots of women that are going to say, oh, she just shot us back because she's talking about having her period. Yes, when I have my period, for me personally, my emotions get a little out of whack. My ability to cope and to handle my stressors is a little off kilter.
Have I missed this before?
No, some months it's just worse than others.
Oh, okay.
And that we know because I also developed skin irritation, and this month was a little bit worse.
But you didn't tell me that.
I didn't, because sometimes I just keep the stuff to myself.
Well, if you tell me, then it's helpful for me to understand when you're getting into a little funk. And so that way I don't get disgruntled and not understand what you're going through, right?
Correct.
Wouldn't that be helpful? Well, in the past months, too, you had been going for acupuncture and had great success with that.
Right. And so I thought I was, quote unquote, cured. And so I've stopped going. And
which we've discussed you going back.
Right. And I hadn't done that.
I understand that. Obviously.
And that is something that I need to at least be on some kind of maintenance. I'm realizing that for me and for how acupuncture has worked for my body, not just my menstrual cycles, but also the skin irritation that I get.
The skin's been a big thing ever since Abby was born.
Yeah. God bless our little girl. All the extra hormones running around because of her. And, so I had found over in the fall that acupuncture was very helpful.
Right.
And I had thought, well, you know what? We've got it under control. It's taken care of. I'm done.
Well, as part of you not going because we've been working on our budget come January where we really started sort of buckling down too. And now you're seeing that as an expense. So you don't want to spend the money on acupuncture?
Absolutely.
But if it makes you healthy, isn't it worth the money?
Yes.
Okay.
But I still have...
So call them.
It's still one of those issues. Okay, yeah, I see. You're just like, call him. But then when I tell you how much our medical bills are, you're like, oh. You do big, like...
No, I don't... Why? But not with acupuncture. I'm talking about all the other medical bills we have to deal with being self-employed.
Right.
And we just get like these bills from hospitals from 2 years ago, and all of a sudden we're paying them now. That's what irritates me. Not if it's on our budget and we know we're paying. Maybe you're going, instead of 4 times a month, maybe you're going 1 time a month for the maintenance.
Right. And that's something that, as we have gotten a little more structured, I think is probably the best word with our budget. Well, we have a cash flow plan. We know where the money's going every month. Right. But we're being much more disciplined about it.
Yes.
It's not just like, well, we've got a little extra cash. We're going to, let's go out to eat. And, it doesn't matter if we've already spent $200 on going out to eat. What's another 20?
Right. No, I understand that.
And so I've just been very conscious of, where the money is going. We've had some unexpected medical expenses this month with Abby.
Right.
So it's kind of been one of those things where I'm like, all right, logically I know I need to go, but there's the other part of my brain that says, but that's an extra $70 every time I go.
I understand that, but is that $70 worth it for our marriage?
Considering what we went through this week and the lack of communication on my part, yeah, I think it's proved itself.
Don't you think so?
I think it's proved itself.
Right. It's almost like going to marriage coaches, and if you spend $100 a month, but you're dealing with some issues, so you don't have to have these times of tension and discomfort in your marriage. Isn't it worth it? I'd say yes.
Yes.
Going to a marriage retreat. We're going to go to one in June, and the whole purpose of us going and spending that money is because we get to spend time together, looking inward and looking at our marriage. I think it's smarter to be spending money on maintenance than on crisis. Because what happened this week, it was just, it was hurtful.
It was a lousy week.
It was. And I wasn't, you came through in flying colors on Friday night, which was awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was because we had taken care of all the issue on Thursday.
Yes, and had time throughout Friday to just sort of get back to where we want to be. And we were able to just talk through the way we normally talk and discuss some issues, not getting put down or having this huge negativity coming. We were able to just talk like we normally do, work through it on Thursday, and we sort of on Friday during the day, and as we got the kids to bed and had some time alone, we were able to just work through that. We weren't working through it at that point in time. We were done. It was over.
Right. Because you had brought it up and I had not reacted very defensively.
Right.
It would have lasted longer had I gone on the defensive, had I, not been able to evaluate the situation and say,
well, you've done
I
that
am
in the
acting
past.
like a jerk.
Yeah. You've done that in the past.
I have, and it lingers.
Right.
The problem lingers, and that's...
Well, you shut down too, so it's hard to do anything when you shut down.
And, that's why, as we titled this podcast tonight, we talk about, can you admit when you're wrong?
Right.
What do you do? Are you the type that when your spouse comes to you and says, I feel like this is happening, do you say, no, that's not happening, that's all in your head? Or, well, it's your fault. Are you quick to turn the blame on them and say, well, if you weren't doing this, then I wouldn't do that? How do you respond to your spouse saying, I'm concerned about our marriage? I'm concerned, Tony calls me up last Thursday and says, I'm concerned about how we're doing this week because it's lousy.
Right.
I feel like you're walking all over me,
mm-hmm.
And you're not respecting me. You're not respecting my ideas. And, partly because of what we do, I was able to look at him and say, you know what? I've been miserable. I've been a miserable wife this week. I wouldn't want to be married to me this week. I'm no fun. I'm not giving your ideas even any room to, at least make it to the wall and see if they're going to stick.
Right.
And so it is evaluating that to say, you know what kind of environment do you have in your marriage? Problems are going to happen. You're going to have those weeks when one of you is off, whether it's, because you've got your period and your hormones are raging, or you've had a bad week at work because your boss is, upset about something and it, the junk all flows downward, or
the kid breaks his arm, the death in the family. I mean, there's a myriad of things that can happen.
Life is going to happen.
Yeah, life does happen. We know. We've been through it.
We've been through it. And so then you're faced with a situation where one of you is not communicating, one of you is not connecting with your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
What do? Do you say, you know what? Forget it. I'm not working on this. Or do you say, you brought up a really good point, mm-hmm. and I haven't been honest with you, and I need to let you know what's going on with me.
Right.
And you take all of the high energy emotion that can easily turn into a huge flame of anger and accusations and finger pointing, and you just, when you're willing to take the responsibility for your part in whatever's going on, because let's be honest, any issue in a marriage is a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
Tony, I hadn't given Tony a fair shot by letting him know what was going on with me. So, I had to admit, I am responsible for this.
And once you did take responsibility in that conversation, we were able to almost instantly connect. We were able to I was able to see, okay, Alisa is taking responsibility for what's happening. And at that point, I was able to let down myself and let down my guard to go, okay, we're ready to actually start talking again and moving forward. So it was very helpful once we got to that point. Once you realized that what you were doing was hurtful, mm-hmm. and you came to me and said, yes, you know what? I have been destructive in our marriage this week. Let's start talking. And it was very quick because we have a very solid foundation.
Well, but I think the point is that when you take responsibility for your actions, you diffuse the situation.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Because I'm not going to get upset or angry or even more frustrated.
Right. Because I've stepped up and said, I own this.
Right. Exactly.
I am going to take responsibility for what you are saying. I can see my part in it.
Yep.
I'm not turning the blame back on you and saying, well, it's all your fault.
Right.
If you just knew what was going on in my head, we wouldn't have this problem. Mm-hmm. Or stupid stuff like that really, he can't know what's going on in my head unless I tell him.
Right.
So as we wrap up tonight, I just want you to think about how you handle the situation when your spouse comes to you. Are you taking responsibility for your part in this two-way street we call marriage? Because it's important to own your part of it. it's important to be able to say, I hear what you're saying and I can see my role in this. Diffuse the situation. Don't let it become this big festering sore in your marriage. We want to know. I would love to hear feedback from you guys this week on what you do in the situation when your spouse comes to you and says, I need to talk to you about how you're reacting to this or why you're saying this. Share with our community what you do, how you take responsibility for your actions. Share some of those times when you've been called into account. How have you responded?
Mm-hmm.
I don't always respond well. This is a week that I got it right when he finally said, you're being lousy. Some weeks I'm not so good.
Right.
But I want to know that you're at least being conscious of how you're reacting and how you're taking responsibility for your actions. So feel free this week to call in on the feedback line at 858-754-9937. You can email us at askalisa@oneextraordinarymarriage.com or
Ask Tony at oneextraordinarymarriage.com.
You can leave comments on the Facebook fan page. Again, share it with your friends.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying it, there are probably friends of yours that would enjoy listening to the podcast or being a part of our community. And so we just want to say thank you.
We do.
Thank you for letting us share a week that wasn't so great. We don't want anybody to think that we have a perfect marriage by any stretch.
We go through the same struggles each and every one of you out there is going through. We're living life just like you guys are.
So until next week, have a great one. Keep working on loving each other, and we will talk to you next week.
Love you guys.